Pokemon continues to have the crazy boom. No matter if it's singles or sealed products, everything is overpriced. And it's not just the Scarlet and Violet era. The Sword and Shield era has been impacted as well. Today, we will be looking at some of the high-value cards from the Sword and Shield era and seeing where they sit. We will primarily be focusing on cards from Fusion Strike, as that is the set that's had quite the movement as per TCG Player, as well as my own research, and we will look at a few other cards as well. Let's dive in. Now, I know I mentioned TCG Player, which we'll be looking at the price of, but today we'll be using Pokédata, as we will also be able to see what the graded cards prices are as well. So the first card we're going to be looking at today is Silly BV from Fusion Strike, and as I mentioned earlier, we're going to see a lot of cards from Fusion Strike today, but Silly BV is the first one we're going to be looking at. Is by far my favorite card from Fusion Strike. I know it's kind of crazy. It's not the most expensive one, but it is my favorite one. And it's just the artwork about it. I love it completely. It's just Silly B flying through in some Arctic-y or like wintry weather, and wherever he goes, the trees or whatever come out of their dormant, and you can see that happening here. And just the purple and the white and the green. It's just such a beautiful card, and I honestly think it's the best card from Fusion Strike. And everyone will probably be like, "What are you talking about? What about the Gengar?" And yes, the Gengar is nice, but Silly B for me is better. Focusing on the price, it is currently going for $60.12 raw as per TCG Player, and a PSA 10 is going for $276.81. So this one over here also had a little bit of a climb over the last month. It's starting around that $43 mark around the beginning of January, and now, as I mentioned, sits around that $60, $64 mark. So about a $20 increase in just a month. And again, this is what happens when the market is moving. And it goes back to what I said earlier. It's not just the Scarlet and Violet era that's been impacted. The Sword and Shield era is also making some big movements, and this is one of the examples here today. It's not the most expensive card in the set or in the Sword and Shield era in general, but it is a card that is making some movement, and I believe is one of the top 5 from Fusion Strike. But this one over here, Silly BV, making some crazy movements, almost 50% increase over the last month. Next up, we have Mew Vmax, also from Fusion Strike, and this one is having a little bit more of a heavier movement than the Silly B, and it was generally a more expensive card to begin with as well. If we look at the beginning of January here, we're around $110, and now we are over the $200 mark. It's insane. It's almost doubled in price in just 1 month. PSA 10 currently going for about $400. Population is around 4,500. It's pretty heavy there. And I'm liking the PSA 9 number here. I know it's tad bit under what the raw copy would be going for, but still close to that amount, and you may see that surpass it at one point. So for $200, it's not too bad. But Mew Vmax going for almost double of what it was just a month ago. And looking at the artwork with this one as well, another really nice card. Love the colors. And one of the things about Fusion Strike that I personally miss, because I had such a focus on Evolving Skies, was the artwork with some of these cards. And Mew Vmax is another one that I missed. I was lucky to get Celebi, but I did not get this one. I'm still missing this card, and very difficult pull rates as well when it comes to Fusion Strike, which is adding to why these cards' prices are continuing to climb. A Fusion Strike booster box is worth, I don't even know at this point, $500-600 US. So this is another reason why you're seeing these prices with some of these cards. So Mew Vmax, another one making some big movements from Fusion Strike. Continuing on with the Espeon Vmax, my second favorite card from the Fusion Strike area, and there's a reason why. It's because I was really trying to complete my Evolutions set with all the alternate arts, both the promos as well as the ones from Evolving Skies and I guess Fusion Strike, because this is not from that set. And this one over here is continuing to climb and is doing really well. Currently going for $310 for a raw copy as per TCG Player, and a PSA 10 is a whopping $636. So this one over here climbed about $60 over the last month, looking around $237 at the beginning of January, and now we currently sit at around $304, $306. So about a $60 gain there for this card as well. A beautiful card. If you are somebody that's trying to finish the Evolutions, then this card needs to be added to your set as well. And for me, I'm lucky that I got it, and I got it graded, and it got a PSA 10. I'm really happy about that. Unlike my Umbreon, which got only a PSA 9, but that's besides the point. Focusing on this card again, Espeon Vmax also making some big moves, and again, Fusion Strike cards, they're all making some big movements right now. And it wouldn't be right to talk about Fusion Strike without bringing up Gengar Vmax, which is also having some crazy movement. TCG Player current price is $744. A PSA 10 is bringing home $1,450. Insane gains here with this one. This one was going for about $540, $530 at the beginning of January. January, and we have climbed all the way up to about that $745 mark at this point. PSA 10 as well, we were looking at around $910 in the middle of December, that is, and we've seen this one climb up all the way over that $1,400 mark as well, which is quite insane. Population is high with this one as well, 8,800 plus in the PSA 10 category. The PSA 9 also having about 4,900, going for about $745. So we're seeing this trend where the PSA 9 is worth almost the same value as the TCG player price, which is quite interesting. I would think at least it would be worth a little bit more. And not to digress, but the new thresholds for the PSA grading criteria is now between 44 and 55, which is making it a little bit more difficult to get a PSA 10. So for those of you who are graders and like to get their cards graded and we're going with those 40/60s, just be cautious with that one, because that is something that PSA recently released and I didn't even know about it until I saw somebody talking about it, and I was like, whoa, I need to watch out now, because now my cards that have that 40 to 60 threshold will probably not get that PSA 10 anymore. Maybe if I'm lucky with the grader, but based on what's going on, probably not. But just to continue with this card, another big one, another big mover, and Gengar Vmax continuing to climb. And this is a beautiful card, and most people would love to have it in their collection. I also would love to have it in my collection, but I'm missing this card. Next up, we have Rayquaza Vmax from Evolving Skies, another big mover. And of course, we need to touch on a couple cards from the Evolving Skies set. And this one is currently going for $692. The PSA 10 is going for $1,065. And a PSA 9 is a little bit on the short side, I would say, going for $603, which is actually almost $100 less than what a raw copy would be going for, which is quite crazy in my opinion. I don't think that's right. Looking at the last month, this card was around $532 around the beginning of January, and now has gone up almost $200 around that $691 mark. A crazy gain with this one. And this one, again, also having very difficult pull rates. Evolving Skies, I'd say, is even worse than Fusion Strike, or just about the same. And the set is aging. To buy a booster box, you're looking at around $1,000 for one of these now, probably even a little bit more. Haven't checked in the recent weeks, but it's getting really up there in price. And this one over here continues to climb, and we'll probably see it make some more movements in the near future. In my honest opinion, I feel like some of these cards will have a little bit of a decline, maybe about 10%, 15%, and then we'll start to see them climb up a little bit more. So it may not be the best time to buy some of these cards, but a good time to watch them to see what actually happens. So just to wrap this one up, Rayquaza Vmax, another one that's having some big movements from Evolving Skies. And of course, if we're talking about Evolving Skies, we will touch on Umbreon Vmax as well, the Moonbreon, and this one is currently going for $1,639 on TCG Player, and a whopping just under $3,000 for a PSA 10. It's insane. PSA 9 is not too bad. It's almost the same price as what it would be for a raw copy, which is great. And this one over here is actually not having the biggest movement in comparison to some of the other cards here. This one actually climbed up to about that 1717 mark, and then it dipped back down to 1200. I don't know what happened there, but it's climbed back up here to about $673, $640, which is currently what the price is. But if we look at what was happening here at the beginning of January, technically, yes, it's still up. It was about $1,400, and then it climbed up to about 17 and dipped back down to around that 1640 mark. So in general, it's still on its upward trend, and we've seen some of the decline here, and I think that was just a minor blip. We'll see this one go up a little bit more, and we'll see what the price sits at after another couple weeks or so. But Umbreon Vmax, or the Moonbreon, also having some big movements right now. And a couple other cards I wanted to quickly touch on. Lugia V, one of my favorite cards from the Sword and Shield era. This one's from Silver Tempest, also having some movement here. Currently going for $284 as per TCG Player, and PSA 10 is going for almost $700. The PSA 10 price alone has increased about $200 over the last month. As you can see here, around the beginning or end of December, it was about $500, and now we're sitting at approximately $700 US for this bad boy. And the raw copy, similarly here, we're around $220, $230 around the beginning of January, and now we are at approximately $284. So big movements here for the Lugia V, and it deserves to make that movement, because honestly, it's such a beautiful card, and I feel like it wasn't getting the love that it deserves, because honestly, it's such a beautiful card. I don't recall what the pull rates were, but I don't believe it was as difficult as Fusion Strike or Evolving Skies from what I recall. But this is an amazing card, and is also finally making the movement up there, and I think it's one of the, I believe believe it's definitely in the top 10 from the Sword and Shield era, and I believe also moving up a spot or two in that top 10, and we'll make a video about that another time. And the last card we're going to be touching on today is Charizard V from Brilliant Stars. This one not having the big movements, but still having some movements. If we look over here at the beginning of January, we're around that $400 mark for a PSA 10, that is, and now we're around $473. So we're seeing some movement there for the PSA 10. For the raw copy, we're around $190, $192 the beginning of January, and we currently sit at $200. So this one over here, I believe, is the one that had the least amount of moving, which is quite interesting because in my honest opinion, this card, this Charizard V, is one of the nicest Charizards from the entire Sword and Shield era. And you guys can hate me for saying that, but it's my honest opinion. You've got Charizard fighting Venusaur there. It's epic, and honestly, it deserves better. And I think it should be a more expensive card than $200, but we'll see what happens to it in the future. Currently still up there, did have a little bit of movement, just not as big as the other ones. Charizard V from Brilliant Stars, another one that we're highlighting today. So that was a quick look at 8 cards making some movements in the Sword and Shield era. We can't touch on every single one of them. Of course, we still have some cards from Lost Origin, such as the Giratina V, as well as Aerodactyl that we didn't talk about. For me, the biggest set to watch is Fusion Strike, as there are several cards making some movements in that set right now. And if there are other cards that I didn't mention in today's video other than the Giratina V, don't forget to drop a comment about it. And if you got this far in the video, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. My name's TheRealVenusaur, you guys are the greatest, and we'll see you next time.